Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought we'd create a simple card this time around, something nice and easy that everybody can achieve. I'm beginning with a piece of Pink Frog smooth card that is 4 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to use a piece of low tack tape. Which way am I going to do it? I think I'm going to do it this way, just for a change. So we're going to have it landscape rather than portrait. And I'm going to mask off an area. Let's go there. In other words, I'm just guessing. I'm not doing anything specific. I'm just masking off an area with some low tack tape. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. So I'm just going to overlap it a little bit so it's a little bit bigger. It's up to you how big you have this area here. I'd say that's just like almost an inch, but you're just guessing anyway. And I'm going to use the Clematis stamp TE5. I'm going to take the Clematis stamp. Let's grab, I'll just chuck my acrylic block straight across the, and this has got lots of bits on, because it's well used. It might be embossing powders. So what I'm going to do is just give the back of the stamp a little wipe, and you'll be surprised how much sort of dirt is on the back of your stamp, just from your fingers, ink, etc. So I've just wiped that, and it'll re-stick onto your acrylic block. I can use the acetate if I want to see where I want to place things, and it just gives you a guide. I'm going to use my Distress Oxide Vintage Photo. Going to ink up the stamp with the Vintage Photo. Now my Vintage Photo is a little bit on the dry side. I could probably do with another one, but we will work with it. So just give that a really good inking. So it's entirely up to you which way you want to place the clematis or whatever you call it. So I'm going to add some of the clematis towards the top. And just like you would with the Nocturne ink, your VersaFine Clair, just give that a little bit of time just to sort of grab hold of the surface. Now where you can see faded here is obviously where it is on the low tack tape, just in the middle bit there. So then I'm going to take this again, and ink up once again. And I'm just giving that plenty of inking, because it's, you know, it's quite a good size stamp. You can have them going different ways if you wish. I quite like them. In other words, I can't make my mind up, is more like it. So let's have one there. And again, I'm just giving that time just to sort of make an impression onto the surface of the card, the area of the card that is visible, because obviously I'm going to remove this low tack tape, and I'm going to ink again a third time. So just give that an inking a third time with your Distress Oxide. Now your Distress Oxide allows you to stamp because you've got that pigment element. It's a dye pigment fusion, so you can stamp with the oxides. The inks, the actual inks, which are translucent, don't give a very clear, crisp image because they're not designed for that. They're translucent, they react with water. These have an opaque quality, so that means you can stamp with them quite nicely. They still react with water, but they stamp really nicely. So what I'm going to do now is just give that stamp a little bit of a clean. We need to make sure that that stamp is clean. Let's remove our stamp. There we go. And then she says, trying to make sure she's got it correctly. Oh, bring it here, Tracy. Is that? Do you like how you mess around with a stamp and you're like, how does it go? That's because I've got it turned the wrong way. Oh, I'm dangerous at times. That's better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if in my collection of masks, I'm hoping that I have got the clematis or clematis in there somewhere. As you can see, there's lots of masks in here that I use, and I use them over and over again. I think I can see, is that a clematis? Oh, that's the clematis there. So I keep lots of my sort of paper masks together in a little wallet. Just makes it a little bit easier for me. So I'm just going to place the mask just over the clematis. It doesn't matter about the area that's got that on. And I'm going to take TE3, the fern. So let's take that fern stamp. Now, do I want both of them? Do you know, I think I will. Let's take the fern stamp. So there's a set of 2 and a fern on its own as well. So it's up to you. You can ink the whole fern. Again, this is another stamp that is well used. Now, if I want to just ink one of the stamps, what I could do is just mask off the other fern with a piece of low tack tape, or you can go like me and just wipe it off with your finger. There we go. And then just make sure that's on there. And then I'm going to stamp the fern just here. So because the clematis is masked, the fern should appear behind. There we go. So if we remove the fern, the mask, it will appear behind. So where else would I like? So keep this on. Hang on, let's do this one first. Which way are you going? Do you like how I can't tell which way? That's it, isn't it? Have I got that right? It's because I've obviously stamped them different ways, you see, so it just messes with my head. Don't know how I've stamped that. Probably stamped it further up. Oh, I'm going to end up faffing. Why is that not? I have no idea what I've done with this mask. Let me just, that's better. So then I'm going to add the fern again, but I'm going to use the smaller fern. Actually, let's just get another acrylic block. And I'm going to use the smaller fern again with the vintage photo. Just using that smaller one. I'm going to add just a little bit of the, do you like how I can't make my mind up? I'm going to be like doing this the whole time. And it's great because you can just add little bits here and there. Take your time. So there's only a little bit of the clematis showing there. So let's place this down here. I'm sure that's just no idea what I've done with this. There we go. Where do I want another fern now? Yeah, yes. So I'm going to ink this larger one here. And it doesn't matter if a little bit has gone on here, because where I'm stamping, it's going to go over the low tack tape. So it doesn't really matter, because we're just adding part of the fern here. And initially it all looks very strange because you've got everything overlaid everywhere, but when you remove your low tack tape, it'll make more sense. So let's remove our low tack tape, because we've got, can you see, you've got an area then that is just perfect. Just so I'm just showing you that, because now what I want to do is, if I just grab a blending tool, there we go. So I've just got a small blending tool, and then I'm going to take the same ink. Let's move these out of the way. We're going to take the same ink, and I'm just going to pick up some of the vintage photos. So I'm using one of my smaller blending tools, and then you can see I'll be working on the low tack tape. You can see it there. And then I'm just going to blend. And of course, the ink that is on the low tack tape from the stamping, etc., I can also blend that off onto the card. And initially, it does look like you're not doing much. Just keep blending that over. There we go. Let's move that out of the way. And then if you remove the low tack tape, we can then see where our sort of aperture area is. There we go. Because we are going to have one that we cut out. So let's grab another piece of white card. Can't pick that up. But whilst we are working on this piece, let's just give this piece of card a little bit of a spritz, so that you get a little bit of a softness to that, and just leave that on one side. We'll just dry our area, and that will continue reacting with the little bit of moisture that we've just added to the card. So I'll just give that a little bit of a clean, because you can do 1 or 2 spritzes and your mat feels soaking wet. Let's get rid of that little bit there. Surprising how much moisture's on there. Just from that little bit of a spritz. So we're then going to take the clematis once again. Now just remember to give your stamp a little bit of a clean. You don't want to leave that oxide ink on there. The only reason being, if you then go to your spit it out, VersaFine Clair, you won't get a clean, crisp image. So I'm then going to take the clematis once again, and we will ink that with the vintage photo, just as we did before. Plenty of patting with your ink just to make sure you get plenty of ink on there, especially if your ink is on the drier side like my ink is. I'm going to cut it out so it doesn't matter which way I stamp that. I can just turn it however I wish. There we go. So we have our clematis, and then I don't know what's on here. I think there's a bit of glue on here, you know. So I'm now going to use a little bit of water. Just using a fine brush, and I'm just going to drag a little bit of the colour out, just into some of the areas. So I only need to touch sort of the vintage photo, and I need very little water. As long as you've got the correct card and the card allows the medium to move, then it works quite well. So I aren't using anything but a touch of water. Let's just blend that out. And the finer brush just means that you won't pick up too much water. You just pick up that small amount of water that you need. Now I want to add a little bit of definition, so wrong drawer. So to give a little bit more depth, I'm going to take the scorched timber. Which is a bit of a... No, I'm not going to have scorched timber because that's sort of a cooler. I'm going to use the gathered twigs. Take a little bit of the gathered twigs, and that's a darker colour. So I'm going to have a piece of kitchen roll, because it's really handy to have that, because then if you've got too much moisture, you can just dab a little bit off there. So I'm just adding a little bit more darkness and depth here and there, and then you can just take out the excess and just drag that out, just so that you've softened the edges a little bit. So we'll pick up the gathered twigs again, and then I'm just going to add a little bit more of the darkness here, like so. Blend it out a little bit, just a little bit. Take off the excess water and then just blend it out so that you can soften that a little bit. If you haven't got enough water, just pick up a little bit more. I'm just trying to soften it a little bit at a time, so I don't go too heavy-handed, just so that you can see. So I'm just picking up a little bit of the darker colour, which is the gathered twigs. I'm just going to add a little bit more of the darkness, just here and there. And the good thing about the Distress Oxide is, or the inks, if you're colouring with them, if you use clean water, let's just move that out of the way. I've got some paint on there. If you use clean water, if there's an area you're not quite happy with, you can actually sort of take out some of the colour and lighten areas should you wish. So if you've put too much ink anywhere, you can simply dab and lighten areas. You can lift a bit of the colour. So we'll just wipe this up for now, because I know what I'll do is I'll just tip my hands into it, or you can collect that up with another piece of card, and then you can create another background. So this is the card that we just spritzed with a touch of water. We'll just cut our clematis out first. So I'll take the clematis and I'm going to just give it a little bit of a white border, just to make that pop a little bit more. So it really is up to you whether you want to go straight to the edge or leave a little white border like I am doing. Sometimes depends how I feel and which card I'm making, etc. Whether I want to add a white border or not. Might depend on the day of the week. You know what we're all like. So just cut this out, and it looks beautiful when it's cut out. Very easy to cut out. There's nothing complicated about it at all. Sometimes I love doing, you know, sort of vintage colours. Very easy to use as well. There we go. That's it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the vintage photo just to the back of the floral. I'm going to end up with a bit of colour on my hands shortly, because I'm then going to spritz the card with water. And normally what you would do is you would just allow this just to sit a little bit before you crumple it up. But I'm crumpling it just to give a little bit more. If you crumple it, it just curls naturally and looks more natural. Okay, let's dab some of that water off. There we go. You can see that you're picking that up, and now the fibres are broken, so it's very easy to sort of manipulate as well. If you want to add darker touches, now the actual paper card is wet. I've got my Ecoline pen here, which is sepia, and it's 416, and you can actually sort of go in and add a few other little darker touches, sort of where the veining is, etc. You can add a few sort of darker lines here and there, just to give it a few more touches. I'm just pressing very lightly. You don't want much, just to give some darker touches. I'm then going to spritz with water again, because even the Ecolines are reactive to moisture. and it'll just lift a bit more of the colour up and just soften that completely. We are going to then, let's just bend our card here. Move our clematis out of the way that we're going to add sort of here. My work surface is a little bit wet. And what I'm going to do is take, add more moisture to my work surface like you do. And I'm just going to soften the edges of this a little bit. I'm going to take, because there isn't enough ink on there, I'm going to take a little bit of the vintage photo. Can you see now I've got that lovely colour? And if I've got too much moisture, I can easily dab a little bit off and just blend this out a little bit. Pick up a little bit of that colour. Again, you can dilute it out. You want it really diluted. You don't want it to be overpowering. You're just sort of adding a little bit of a wash just to that. And I'm just going to use mainly water just to blend the edges. There we go. I keep picking up little bits. Look, there's a little bit here as well. There we go. Right. I'm now going to take my background stamp that I don't use very often. Right, where are you? Actually, do I fancy? Where are you? There we go. So I'm going to take TE11 background elements, and I'm going to use the vintage photo again. And you can see I'm not using many products, and I'm going to just add a little bit of text. So I'm just using one finger. So I'm using the vintage photo, taking the background elements, and I'm just going to add a little bit of background stamping, and I'm just tapping with my finger. I don't need to press on very hard. It just gives a really soft, botanical feel to the background. So I'm going to continue a little bit up here, a little bit of stamping, and it adds just a little bit of something without being too much. It's just it gives it that sort of botanical feel. Let's just add a little bit down here. And you can see you've sort of got broken text, but it's just enough. You don't need too much of anything else, I don't think. So I'm just going to decide where it's going, because what I want to do is I want to use the wren from TE30. So let's just grab the little wren. I don't know why I don't just make it easy and pull the stamp out. So I want my little wren to face the floral. So the floral is going to go here somewhere. And what I'm going to use is Portobello. So I'm going to use my Portobello ink. Nice juicy ink pad, because it's as it should be, because it's quite new. I'm going to add my little wren just here, and I'm just going to give that a few moments just so that the ink absorbs onto the card, because that's a silhouette stamp. There we go, just lovely. Place that back. Just pull the stamp out, Tracy, because it's far easier. Let's place that back. Now on the TE30, it's this lovely background stamp. There's some lovely little elements on there, so I think I'm going to just pick that off sometimes what I like doing is just having a look at some of the elements that are on there. So for instance, that clock is rather nice. So I'm going to use that, and I could use my light bulb stamp set TE25, but then I will have a whole clock, and I don't want that. I like the fact that this is just part of a clock. So what I'm going to do is ink the clock image up where it is so that it's part of a clock. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my kitchen roll, and I'm just going to sort of take off that little bit there, and then just to diffuse it a little bit, let's take off any ink that's there. And then I'm sort of going to dab with my kitchen roll just so that it sort of phases out a little bit and looks a little bit more rustic. Right, so where are you going? Here, aren't you? So let's just, when you want your copy of paper, why is it never there? Copy of paper. So just grab a piece of the copy of paper. Let's see if I can bring this so you can actually see what I'm doing, which usually helps. Add that just to the edge there. And then you lose your stamp. And then I'm just going to faff, because that's just me all over. I could have put my low-tack tape back in place, but that would be too simple. And I'm just going to add a part of this clock. If I wanted to, I could just use the stamp as is off the block, but sometimes you can end up with a little bit of, when you're using, you know, an image like this that's meant to be a clock, sometimes it can end up being, what's the word, a little bit blurry because you just sort of double stamp. But as you can see, I've now sort of got a rustic clock like so. And what I can do now to sort of join those pieces up, let's take this stamp off here. I can either use bits of this, because there's parts of the letter, there's a postage stamp. I could just add those numbers. Don't know why I keep putting that flower back, but I do. So let's just add a little bit of these numbers and alphabet. Again, this time, because it's numbers, it's a little bit different. I can just use it off the block because I'm literally going to sort of touch that on there. There we go. So it then sort of connects that there. Let me just place that. It's a huge stamp, that is. It's lovely. So then I can just place my clematis here and just add the clematis as part of the design. And I'm just going to add some touches of white as well, just in the background, but not just white. I want to add some other touches as well. I might do the white afterwards. Yes, I will. So what we're going to do is grab a quickie glue pen or a Zig 3-way glue pen. Squeeze and roll. Do you know, I've only just realised you have to squeeze and roll. Dear me. So I'm just going to add my quickie glue pen. Squeeze and roll, really. So I'm just adding, or I'm presuming I'm adding, a little bit this glue pen. But your guess is as good as mine whether I'm doing that or not. Let's grab a piece of paper. That's it. So I'm just adding some touches of gold. Just here and there with my quickie glue pen. Let's just add some here. Let's add some to the bird. Little bit here and there, just on the floral. So I'm just adding a few touches of that quickie glue pen, just so that I can then add some touches of gold. So I'm going to go back to my floral and I'm going to add a few touches here and there of the gold. I just can't get used to squeezing and rolling, but there you go. So when you first put your quickie glue pens on, or whichever glue pen you're using, it's sort of got a bluey tinge to it, and that will dry clear. And once it's dried clear, that will then be tacky. Well, that's the idea. So let's grab some sort of gold leaf sheets. So I'll put some copier paper down, like so. And we'll just grab some Do you know why is it if you move something to a new place, you can never remember where it is? Shouldn't do it really. Now when I'm just using quickie glue pens, I find sort of the sheets are a little easier because they're finer sort of layers of gold leaf. So I find it works a little bit better. I instantly forget where I've put the adhesive. I could just feel over the page. I don't really need much gold leaf. Let's use that and make do with that for now. And then I'm just going to rub over just to add little touches of the gold. And you don't want to overpower the design too much. You just want to have touches of it. And if I do it on copier paper, means it's not going everywhere. So then you can have a look, and if you think, well, I wouldn't mind a couple more bits of gold, then you can add some little touches of gold. But you don't want to add too much so that the whole design is gold. It's nice just to have little bits. Okay, now don't forget, if you've got moisture in your hand, you're then going to move that colour. So just remember that. So I'm just adding some of this to here now. Just to this floral here. And you can see you hardly use anything. You don't use much at all, and you can just test your fingers and see if there's anywhere that you've got a little bit of glue. There we go, got some. I can then, I'm not going to bother sort of placing these little bits back. There's hardly anything there. And as long as I don't sneeze, and I just fold this up, it then hasn't gone anywhere, so that it's not everywhere then. Let's just close that up. And we can then get rid of this. And it just gives a little touch of opulence to that design. And then just to give that a little bit of a polish, just take a little bit of kitchen roll. If you've got your scoochies and things like that, that's great, but I haven't got a scoochie, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a dust. There we go. I'm going to add my floral as well, just so that, oh, I keep knocking it off, just so that you can see that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white, just here and there. Don't need to add it to those, just a little bit to the bird. A few little touches of white here. So we'll add this. I don't need to really even add any gel, ultra thick gel medium or pin flare glue, because you can still keep the dimension by just adding a little bit of glue to the centre. And then just adding, just so that you can see, just adding that in its own right. So what I'm going to see, because I first thought, let me grab, let's put this out of the way so I can actually see where I'm working. Move that one out of the way. Where have you gone? The clematis is on it. That's because it's still on here. So I'm going to make sure now that this is clean and it's got no oxide on there. Put my lid on the adhesive. And then I'm going to take the Portobello VersaFine Clear ink. So this is your permanent ink. So this is your permanent ink. I need to stamp that onto that there then. Let's see if there's enough ink, enough card. Yes, there is. So let's stamp this onto here. So now you've got your permanent ink, so that won't move. There we go. So this is your permanent ink. So again, I'm going to cut out, leaving a little bit of a white border. Let's go around, and it's such an easy floral to cut out. Now imagine if you'd inked in purples or pinks, anything like that, and then you coloured in those colours if you didn't want to go down the vintage route. I do love to mix it up though a little bit and show different colourways, you know, not always do the same colourways all the time. And when you change the colourways, it really does give things a different look, I feel. We can still colour this if you wish. However, let's just leave it as it is at the moment, and then I'll explain why. There we go. Nice and easy to cut out. And then what I'm going to do is take that background stamp, and then I'm going to add a little bit of stamping with the Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping just to the floral, and obviously it's very subtle, just so that you can see there's some subtle stamping on there. And then I'm just going to use my paintbrush and just put the petals around the paintbrush. There we go. Just to give it a bit of shape in a different way. And then I just want I want that floral to appear in the background. So now I do want some pin flare. And the reason I'm adding, we could add it behind here, is you've got this darker, I'm going to end up faffing for England, you've got this darker wren here, and I want to bring the floral in to go with the wren as well, just so you can see that, because I only want the clock to just sort of peer out, and that's why we're using the clematis to just sort of be on top of there, so that it works with the wren as well. Now before I do that, because I always do this, don't I? What do I do with the Posca pen? It's right in front of your face. Just going to add a few scratchy lines here and there, just to give a little touch of white. Then add a little blob of pin flare. And it is going to be a little blob the way I'm going. Let's get rid of that little clump of hardness. There we go. And you prevent that by pushing it up so there's no air pockets. Let's put that in the bin. And then my husband puts his hand in the bin and he'll press everything down, and then he ends up with glue all over his hands. Right. Before we do that, let's just bend that card a little bit. And then I'm going to faff for England. There we go. So it sort of echoes the wren as well. So then I'm going to grab, or try to grab, a black mat. If we place that against a black mat, that will sort of stand out a little bit more. We do need to add some splatters, so let's just move that black card out of the way. And we'll just, let's press that down. Need to make sure that's pressed down. And I'm just going to add a few sort of splatters here and there to our card. And then I'm going to add this to our black mat. Obviously I want to add the word clematis as well. but just press your pin flare glue down a little bit, because I've done that before, sort of left it without pressing down, and it hardens off and then it isn't adhered to the card. Let's add this, just get one side sort of there, and then I can mess around a little bit. Again, it's always better if you wait for that Posca pen just to dry a little bit, and even better if you wait for the clematis to dry as well. Makes it far easier for you. There we go. So I'm then going to add that to a 5 by 7 inch card blank, and we'll add that to our 5 by 7 card blank. I always think it looks finished when you've added your card blank and your matting and layering. Just make sure that your card is facing the right way and you're not opening a card that's going the wrong way. Just lift that, make sure I have got a card that's facing. I have indeed got a card that's facing the right way. So I want the word clematis. So we'll just grab that. Let's move that out of the way. Grab our clematis stamp. There we go. And I've got the word clematis here. So we'll actually use that one. Might just have a little bit of card left there. Let's grab that clematis. And I'm going to use the Portobello ink just for a change, just so it's all sort of tone on tone. I can put a stamp down, you know, and 3 seconds later I can't find it. Unbelievable. Just cutting it down a little bit so that the text isn't too clumpy. Bring in our card, and then I can add the word clematis that I now can't pick up. There we go. I'm definitely running out of this glue now. I have got some more, but I like to doubly make sure that it's running out. There we go. We'll just add that here, like so. And again, just give that a couple of moments before you try to add the shading underneath. Far easier. Just add a little bit of shading. Just underneath there. I'm using my Inktense pencil, which is called Chinese ink. There we go. And then you can see we have a lovely sort of vintage piece with touches of gold. Just gives it a different feel as well. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you'll give it a try. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. I'll hold that up once more just so that you can see. There we go. So I hope you have a lovely week and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.